Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own life? You wake up, you move, you speak, but inside there's an icy, absolute silence. The fire that once drove you has gone out, leaving only the cold ashes of habit. And the most terrifying question that arises in this emptiness is, am I broken? But what if this silence isn't a breakdown? What if it's not the end but a recalibration? What if this paralysis of will isn't a system error, but its most precise and necessary function? To understand this brilliant design, we must look into the deepest blueprints of the soul, left to us by the great cartographer of the inner world, Carl Gustav Jung. Over the next hour, we won't just analyse apathy, we will do something more. You will understand why your inner engine has stalled. You will learn what sacred task your soul is performing in this state. And, most importantly, you will see a path not back to who you were, but forward, to who you are called to become. If you are ready to stop fighting with yourself and start listening to what your silence is saying, our shared dive begins, right now. Let's talk about this state, without diagnoses, without labels. Let's just talk about how it actually feels, about the grey filter that has settled over the world, making even the sunniest day dull and flat. About food that has lost its taste, turning into simple fuel for a body that doesn't want to go anywhere. About music that no longer gets under your skin, remaining just a collection of sounds incapable of touching a single string inside. About favourite movies that only cause boredom, and about books whose pages merge into a meaningless pattern. Let's talk about the heaviness, about that leaden fatigue in your limbs, as if gravity has become stronger just for you, as if the very air has thickened and presses on your shoulders, making every movement require incredible willpower. You get out of bed and it's already a feat. You go to work and it's an ascent of Mount Everest. It's a strange feeling, as if you are a perfectly assembled mechanism that someone simply forgot to connect to a power source. All the parts are in place, all the systems are functional, but there is no current inside, no spark. You operate on inertia, say the right words, even smile in the right places. But this is just the work of an autopilot, flawlessly imitating life, while the real pilot sits in a dark cockpit and stares into the void. You remember that you once wanted, dreamed, strived. But the memory of that feeling is like a faded photograph from someone else's life. You look at that person in the picture, energetic, passionate, alive, and you don't recognise them. You know it's you, but you can't feel the connection, the fire that burned in their eyes. Between you and them is a glass wall of time and indifference. And the first and most important thing you must hear today is this: you are not lazy, you are not weak-willed, you have not failed. Repeat this to yourself. Let these words penetrate the armour of self-criticism that you have been building for months, or perhaps years. What you are experiencing is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it is a sign of the deep, unconscious honesty of your soul. It is a sign that your inner compass is still working, and it is desperately signalling that you have gone off course. Your soul is tired of playing games that no longer have meaning for it. It is tired of wearing masks that are too tight. It is tired of chasing goals that do not nourish it, but only drain it. And it did the only thing it could to be heard. It went on strike. This paralysis of will is its ultimatum. It is its refusal to produce energy for those parts of your life that have become a lie. It is not broken. It has consciously, wisely, and desperately shut down the factory, because it was producing not happiness, but toxic waste for your spirit. So know this: this state is not a pathology. It is an act of self-preservation. It is your inner truth that has finally found the courage to say, enough. I will not live like this anymore. The modern world is obsessed with the idea of filling. It teaches us to fear emptiness, to fill it with noise, goals, tasks, entertainment. We are taught that silence is a vacuum and a pause is a loss. But what if this emptiness is not the enemy? What if it's not a grave, but a cocoon? A sacred space where the old form must dissolve so that a new one can be born. You feel broken because you are looking at this process through the eyes of a caterpillar. Inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar doesn't just fall asleep, it literally dissolves. It turns into a chaotic, nutritious soup of cells. For it, this is the end of the world. Disintegration. A loss of form and meaning. This is exactly what you are feeling. The disintegration of the old personality, old values, old desires. You don't yet know that this chaos is not agony but alchemy. You don't yet see the imaginal cells, tiny islands of the future that are organising this soup into a new, previously unimaginable structure. You are mourning the death of the caterpillar because you don't yet feel the foundation for wings being laid within you. You perceive the sacred process of transformation as a pathology because no one has taught you to see the design in this chaos. And to understand this alchemical process, this quiet, sacred transformation inside the cocoon, we cannot rely on our usual tools. Our vision is clouded by the noise of superficial explanations, and our hearing is deafened by a chorus of unsolicited advice. Therefore, our first step is an act of intellectual and spiritual hygiene. We must ruthlessly discard the verbal chaff, the hasty diagnoses with which modern culture so desperately tries to patch over the sacred silence of the soul. These labels are not just incorrect, they are harmful. They turn you into an enemy to yourself, forcing you to fight against what is actually your healer. We must clear the field to see what is really happening. Before we can build a new, solid structure of understanding, we must demolish the dilapidated structure of false beliefs that holds us captive in shame and fear. That is why, before we talk about what your apathy is, we will dissect with surgical precision what it is not. So, we are standing on a cleared field, and the first thing we see are three huge, misleading monuments that cast a shadow on our self-perception. These are the three great myths about apathy. Let's examine each of them under the merciless light of analysis. The first and most common myth: it's just laziness. This label is the most poisonous because it sounds like an accusation of a moral failing. But laziness and apathy are phenomena from different universes. Laziness is an active choice. It's when you have energy, but you prefer to direct it towards something more pleasant and less costly. You're too lazy to go to the gym because you want to watch a series. This is a conflict of desires in which the simpler one wins. Apathy is not a conflict of desires, it is their complete absence. You have no energy, not only for the gym, but also for the series. The couch and the treadmill feel equally meaningless. Laziness is active resistance to duty. Apathy is the absence of energy even to resist. The second myth, the twin brother of the first: you just need to get a grip. This advice is like yelling at a stalled car with an empty tank. You can kick the tyres all you want, turn the ignition key and shout, "Go!" But the problem is not with the car's will or character. The problem is the lack of fuel. To tell a person in a state of apathy to get a grip is to demand that an engine run without gasoline. It is not only pointless, but also cruel, because it places the blame on a mechanism that is deprived of its resource. Your will is the engine, but the fuel for it is always meaning. And if the tank of meaning is empty, no command, no amount of willpower will make the car move. And finally, the third, most modern and scientific sounding myth: it's just a chemical imbalance in the brain. Let's be perfectly clear. We are not denying biochemistry. Of course, your state is reflected in your neurochemistry. The levels of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine change. But this is not the cause, it is the effect. It is only a description of the mechanism, not the answer to the question, why did this mechanism activate right now? To reduce everything to chemistry is like explaining a house fire by the work of the fire alarm. Yes, the siren is wailing, the light is flashing, that's a fact. But it doesn't answer the main question: what caused the fire? Biochemistry is the dashboard of your soul. And if the red light critical energy level has come on, the most foolish thing to do is to smash the light so it doesn't irritate you. Our task is to understand what existential fire caused it to light up. So if it's not laziness, not weakness, and not a chemical malfunction, then what is it really? Imagine that apathy is a fever of the soul, a high temperature. It is exhausting, drains your strength, causes suffering. It burns out all interest, all joy from within. It takes away your appetite for life, making the most exquisite dishes, success, relationships, entertainment, bland and tasteless. You feel sick, and this is not an illusion. Your soul is truly sick. And what is our first instinctive reaction to a fever? To bring it down, to take a fever reducer. In our case, this is a psychological fever reducer, a motivational training, a new ambitious goal, an urgent vacation, an impulsive purchase, diving into a series or video games. We do everything to bring down this agonizing temperature, to feel normal again, to get back in line. We desperately try to cool down the thermometer because its reading scares us. But here lies the fundamental and tragic misconception. A fever is not the disease, it is a symptom. Moreover, it is a sign of health. It is the deafening, irrefutable proof that your soul's immune system is alive, that it has recognized a virus and has entered into a desperate fight with it. A high temperature is the environment in which pathogens die. It is the price the body pays for healing, and your soul's immune system is now fighting a very real infection. The infection is the false values that you have accepted as your own. The infection is the outdated social mask, your persona, which has become too tight and is suffocating you. The infection is the inauthentic way of life that requires you to be someone you are not in exchange for approval and security. And here is the greatest irony. By bringing down the temperature, you are not curing the disease. You are interfering with the treatment. By taking another motivational fever reducer, you are only temporarily weakening the soul's immune system, allowing the virus of false meanings to entrench itself even deeper. You are forcing your soul to be silent while it is screaming to you about a mortal danger in the only way available to it, through this exhausting but life-saving fever. And this fever of the soul, like any other, has a starting point. There is a source of inflammation. Your apathy is not a random fog that descended from the heavens. It is smoke coming from a specific dying fire in your life. And now our task is to find it. For this, I want to invite you into a space of quiet and ruthless honesty with yourself. What I am about to ask you to do is not just an exercise. It is possibly the most important diagnostic step you can take. So I want to ask you to pause, literally. Press the pause button after my question and give yourself a minute, 5 minutes, as long as it takes, to hear the answer from deep within. Not from your head, which will immediately start coming up with logical explanations, but from the part of you that feels. Here is the question. Be with it. Recall what major goals or roles in your life were recently achieved or, conversely, finally lost their meaning right before this apathy began. What victory turned out to be empty? It could have been a long-awaited promotion that once in your hands brought nothing but new anxiety. It could have been a huge project you invested years of your life in, and after its completion, there was not pride but a ringing emptiness. What battle ended, leaving behind silence? Perhaps you finally paid off your mortgage and realised the race was over, but there was no prize. Perhaps your grown children left home, and your role as a parent, which was the centre of your universe, exhausted itself. Perhaps a difficult relationship that took all your energy ended, and in the newfound freedom you found not joy, but only the echo of a meaningless struggle. Take your time. Rewind the tape. Where is that exact moment, that turning point, after which the energy began to drain away? The answer here is the key to everything. This is the very virus that your soul is now fighting. Find it. What you may have just felt in that silence, that moment when the energy just disappeared from some important part of your life, when a burnt-out goal left behind only cold ashes. This is not your personal anomaly. It is not a sign that you are living wrong. It is a universal, deeply meaningful experience of the human soul. This sudden ebb of life force that you felt was not chaos. It was a precise, strategic retreat of your soul from a battlefield it could no longer consider its own. And when you stand on this scorched field, amidst the ruins of yesterday's meanings, it is easy to feel lost, lonely, and frightened. It is easy to believe that you are the only one who has gotten lost in this uncharted territory. But you are not the first to find yourself in this inner desert. There was a man who dedicated his entire life not just to studying, but to bravely exploring these very territories. He was not an armchair theorist, but a fearless pioneer who himself descended into the darkest and most tangled landscapes of the human psyche to map them. This great cartographer of the inner world is Carl Gustav Jung. It was he who, observing hundreds of patients going through similar crises and having experienced his own profound inner breakdown, gave this phenomenon a precise, clinical, and at the same time poetic name. What you are experiencing, he did not call apathy. He called it introversion of libido, the withdrawal of psychic energy. And this, Jung insisted, is not a random malfunction. It is not a disease. It is a purposeful, meaningful operation being carried out by your psyche. It is a brilliant maneuver of your inner wisdom, your deep self, which forcibly withdraws energy from the external world to direct it toward a super important inner task that your conscious ego has ignored for too long. So what is the purpose of this great inner retreat? What is the design of this operation that feels like a breakdown? Let's understand its brilliant plan. To understand this brilliant plan, we must first understand what currency our soul operates with. For Jung, this currency was libido, and here it is crucial to immediately discard the narrow Freudian understanding. For Jung, libido is not just sexual desire, it is psychic energy as such. It is life force, vitality, interest, passion, striving. It is that inner fire that makes us get out of bed in the morning, learn new things, build relationships, create something in the world. It is everything. Now imagine that your soul has 100% of this energy. This is your energy budget. For the entire first half of life, and for some even longer, we, like wise investors, invest this budget in the external world. This is an absolutely necessary and healthy process. We invest, say, 40% in building a career and achieving professional mastery. We invest another 30% in relationships, in love, friendship, family. About 20% goes to creating and maintaining our social mask, our persona, the image that allows us to function successfully in society. The remaining 10% we invest in hobbies, interests, travel. And it works. These investments bring dividends, status, security, recognition, love. They allow us to build our ego, our I, which has weight and a place in this world. But at some point, usually in midlife, a quiet but tectonic re-evaluation occurs. Your inner wisdom, the centre of the psyche that Jung called the self, conducts an audit. And the self, like a wise and impartial financial director, looks at your investment portfolio and realises with horror the dividends are no longer coming in the currency of meaning. A career brings money but not joy. Relationships have become a habit, not a source of life. The persona feels like a prison, not a comfortable suit. We are on the verge of spiritual bankruptcy, and at this critical moment, the self makes a radical, life-saving decision: to withdraw all investments. It forcibly withdraws 40% of the energy from your career, and work becomes an unbearable routine. It takes 30% from relationships, and communicating with people begins to drain, not fill. It withdraws 20% from the persona, and you no longer have the strength to keep up appearances and meet expectations. The external world is de-energized. This is your apathy. But where did all this energy go? It did not disappear. It did not evaporate. It was withdrawn. It is all gathered inside, in the central bank of the soul, to finance a new, super important internal project: personality reassembly. Your apathy is not a deficit in your soul's treasury. It is a full consolidation of all assets for the main investment of your life. An investment not in who you should be in the eyes of the world, but in who you really are. To see how this great law works in practice, let me tell you the story of Elena. Elena was a work of legal art. By 40, she had become a partner in a prestigious firm, and her name was synonymous with victory. Her mind was like a scalpel, precise, cold, merciless to the weaknesses in an opponent's argument. Her persona of a successful lawyer was flawless. Sharp suits, a confident voice, a reputation as someone who never loses. Her entire energy budget, all 100% of her libido, was invested in this one enterprise, the courtroom. And the dividends were enormous: money, status, respect, the fear of her enemies. But one day, something started to go wrong. At first, it was almost unnoticeable. Victories that used to bring intoxicating satisfaction began to leave only a bitter aftertaste of fatigue. The closing argument in court, which was once an act of creation for her, turned into a mechanical repetition of memorized formulas. Then she started forgetting case details, mixing up names, being late for important meetings. Her famous legal mind, once sharp and clear, began to fog over. She felt exhausted, empty, apathetic. Her conscious ego was in a panic. It screamed, "Get it together, you're losing your edge, you're getting weak." She tried to fight it. She took vacations, drank vitamins, hired a productivity coach, but nothing helped. Her flawless legal mind was turning into a scorched earth. Where was this energy going? Where was the water of her soul leaking to? At night, she had strange, obsessive dreams. She dreamed of an abandoned garden behind a high stone wall. Withered roses, a pond overgrown with weeds, cracked statues. And in the dream, she knew with absolute certainty this was her garden, and she had to revive it. During the day, passing by a bookstore, her hand would reach for books on landscape design, on varieties of old roses, on the art of ikebana. She would buy them, not understanding why, and hide them like something shameful. Her soul, herself, had withdrawn all investments from the project Elena, Brilliant Lawyer. It no longer wanted to win arguments. It wanted to cultivate life. It was tired of the sterile, competitive atmosphere of the courtroom and longed for the living earth under her fingers, for the smell of damp soil, for the quiet miracle of a blooming bud. Elena's apathy was not a disease. It was not a failure of her will. It was the longing of her soul for a garden. It was the call of her true nature, which had become so loud that it drowned out all the other sounds of her former, successful life. Elena's story is not just a story. It is a metaphor for what is happening inside you right now. Elena's courtroom is your reality. It is your job, where you have hit a ceiling and are now just going in circles. It is your role as the perfect parent or the dependable friend, which was once a source of pride and now feels like a heavy burden. It is your flawless image on social media, which requires more and more energy to maintain while giving nothing in return. It is any part of your life that was successful, functional, socially approved, but has stopped nourishing your soul. You have so long and so brilliantly defended others' interests in your courtroom that you have lost the most important case, the case for the right of your own inner world to exist. And Elena's abandoned garden is your longing. It is the part of you that you sacrificed on the altar of efficiency and success. It is your inner artist, whom you silenced because you can't make a living from painting. It is your inner philosopher, whom you didn't let speak because you need to think about business, not daydream. It is your inner musician, traveller, scientist, mystic, that precious, unique part of your essence that you deemed useless and impractical. And your apathy is not silence, it is a scream. It is the deafening scream of your inner gardener, who can no longer watch his garden become overgrown with weeds. Your fatigue is not a lack of strength. It is all your strength gathered at the gates of this abandoned garden and refusing to go anywhere else. Your energy is not gone. It is waiting. It is waiting for you to finally stop trying to resuscitate the scorched earth of the courtroom and pay attention to your dreams of a garden. To those quiet desires that seem silly to you, to those strange interests that you push away, to those images that come in moments of silence. This is not random unconscious garbage. These are the seeds of your future self, desperately trying to sprout through the asphalt of your habits and obligations. So ask yourself, what is your courtroom? What role, what activity, what way of life has been completely exhausted? And, the most important question, what does your garden look like? What does your soul whisper about when you let it speak? You have identified your courtroom, the part of your life where the energy has run out, and perhaps, in the silence, you have felt the first vague outlines of your abandoned garden. This next step requires even more courage. It requires you not just to acknowledge the existence of this garden, but to lovingly examine its first, timid sprouts, which your inner critic has for so long called weeds. And here is my second question for you. It requires not analysis, but listening. It requires you to treat the quietest movements of your soul with the utmost respect. What quiet, useless, impractical desires and interests come to you in this silence? What do you dream about when you allow yourself not to think about what you should do? What do you dream about at night? What image, what activity comes to your mind when you just look out the window? Maybe it's a persistent desire to learn to play the cello, not to perform, but just to feel the wood vibrate against your chest. Maybe it's an inexplicable pull to read books on astrophysics or the history of ancient Egypt, not for an exam, but simply because your soul is drawn to the stars or to the mysteries of the past. Maybe it's a simple but all-consuming desire to sit by the water for hours and watch the waves, or to study old maps, or to learn to bake bread from your great-grandmother's recipe, or to write poems that no one will ever see. This is your abandoned garden. And here I want to do more than just ask a question. I invite you, if you feel you have the strength, if this image is clear enough, to share the image of your garden in the comments. Not necessarily a plan of action. Share the image, the feeling. Write not what you want to do, but what image comes to you in the silence. Perhaps it's an old library with the smell of dust, a pottery studio at dawn, a path in the mountains where there are no people, or a quiet room with a telescope pointed at the sky. Let's create something unique here, under this video. A sanctuary. A greenhouse for the most fragile sprouts of the soul. A space where these desires will not be judged in terms of utility or productivity. In the ordinary world, such admissions are often ridiculed or ignored. Here we will welcome them as the most precious news from the depths. Perhaps your mind is whispering now, this is stupid. No one is interested in this. But here in our community, stupid and impractical are synonyms for authentic. Read the comments of others. You will see that you are not alone in your strange, beautiful worlds. Let's together turn this comment section into the most flourishing and diverse garden. We have identified your courtroom that needs to be left, and we have seen the first sprouts of your abandoned garden. But for these fragile sprouts to break through to the light, they must first grow through a deep, dark layer of soil. Your apathy is this soil. It is your strictest but most honest teacher. This teacher does not give you new knowledge. It forcibly takes away all your illusions. It does not offer you new goals. It burns all your old, false goals to the ground. Its method is the method of subtraction. It forcibly removes everything that is not you, so that you can finally see what remains. When others' desires are gone, when the social mask falls away, when the energy to maintain a false facade runs out, what will remain in this silence? What remains is you. This seemingly cruel process of purification through emptying has an ancient and noble name. Long before the advent of modern psychology, the sages of the past, the alchemists, explored this very same phenomenon. They were not naive seekers of material gold. They were the first depth psychologists, studying the transformation of the human soul. And they knew that the great work, the work of creating a whole personality, always begins with the darkest, most terrifying stage. In alchemy, this process was called nigredo, the blackening. It is the stage of decay, dissolution, transformation into prima materia. It is the moment when the solid becomes liquid and the definite becomes chaotic. To an outside observer, it looks like rot and death. The alchemists knew. To turn imperfect lead into pure gold, it must first be completely destroyed as a form. You cannot just paint lead with gold paint. It must be melted down, purified of impurities, turned into a formless mass, so that a new, more perfect structure can be born from it. Your apathy is your nigredo. Your feeling of disintegration, loss of meaning, inner darkness, it is not a curse. It is a sacred phase of the great work. You are not in a pit of despair, but in an alchemical crucible where the lead of your false personality is dissolving to release the pure gold of yourself. Embrace this process. Do not fight it. This is not the end of your story. It is its darkest, most mysterious, and most important beginning. And if apathy is your teacher, then how does the learning take place? What is its main lesson? The first and most difficult lesson is this: stop fighting. Stop trying to motivate yourself. Stop looking for a magic pill, a new goal that will light a fire in you again. Stop scolding yourself for inaction. You are trying to win a war, while your soul is inviting you to peace talks. All your attempts to get a grip are the desperate sorties of a general who does not want to admit that his army is defeated and the war itself was meaningless. Your task now is not to act, but to listen. Not to break through the fog, but to learn to navigate in it, using your inner instruments. The silence that you fear so much is not emptiness, it is a negotiation room. It is a sacred space for the most important dialogue of your life. On one side of the table in this room sits your tired, frightened ego. This is the part of you that is used to controlling everything, achieving, planning. It is your inner manager who looks in panic at the stalled production and does not understand what is happening. He is used to living by an external map, and now he has discovered that he is in a territory that is not on this map. On the other side of the table is your wise, whole self. This is the deep center of your personality. It was the self that initiated this crisis for the sake of your salvation. It speaks not in the language of logic and plans, but in the language of dreams, images, intuitive guesses, and strange coincidences. And often the self brings an unexpected ally to these negotiations: your shadow. All those parts of you that your ego deemed unacceptable, weak, or inappropriate, an exile to the basement of the unconscious. Your suppressed anger, your hidden vulnerability, your childish dreams, your creative energy that you considered not serious. And here is the main law of this process. Your energy will return not when you find a new external goal. It will return when your ego hears and accepts the inner call that the self is addressing to it, when it agrees to make peace with the shadow and integrate its power. Energy will return when you find a goal that is approved not by society, but by your own soul's depth. But how exactly do you listen? How do you learn to understand this quiet language of the soul, when all our lives we have only learned to speak the loud language of the external world? I will not offer you complex techniques or productivity marathons. On the contrary, I will offer you two tools that are forms of active non-doing. These are not ways to fix yourself. These are ways to get to know yourself. The first tool is sacred nothingness. This sounds simple, but for a modern person, it is perhaps the most difficult exercise. Set aside 15 minutes a day, no more, but no less. During this time, you do nothing. And this is the key point. You are not meditating, trying to achieve enlightenment. You are not reading, not listening to music, and of course not scrolling through your feed. You just sit on a chair, in an armchair, on the floor, and you allow everything that comes to be. If boredom comes, you allow boredom to be. If anxiety comes, you observe the anxiety. If fragments of thoughts, images, memories come, you just let them pass without clinging or pushing away. This is not a practice to achieve calmness. It is an act of respect for your inner process. These 15 minutes are your declaration to the universe and to your unconscious. I am ready to listen. I am creating space for what wants to be heard. This is your refusal of busyness. This is your tribute to the silence in which everything new is born. The second tool is a dream and synchronicity journal. If sacred nothingness is about creating space for dialogue, then this journal is about learning the language in which this dialogue is conducted. Your unconscious, yourself, is constantly sending you messages. At night, through dreams. During the day, through what Jung called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences. Keep a notebook by your bed. When you wake up, don't grab your phone. Lie for a minute and try to catch the fleeting images of the dream. Write down everything you remember, even the most absurd and disjointed fragments. Don't try to analyse them, just record them. Your dreams are nightly letters from yourself. Keeping a journal is simply the act of opening the envelope. And during the day, note strange coincidences in the same journal. You thought of a long-forgotten friend and he called. You saw an image of a lion in a dream, and the next day you saw an image of a lion 3 times. Don't look for mysticism in this. See it as a game your unconscious is playing with you, trying to draw your attention to certain themes and symbols. These two tools together create a powerful system for dialogue with the depths. They will not give quick answers, but they will teach you to ask the right questions and to hear the quiet but true answers that are already inside you. I want to be completely honest with you. Going through this is incredibly hard. Applying practices that seem like inaction in a world obsessed with action is an act of nonconformity. To remain in silence and uncertainty when every cell of your socially conditioned body is screaming, "Come on, run, do something." This requires enormous, almost superhuman courage. It is the courage to stay in the alchemical crucible when the fire becomes unbearable. The courage not to run away from your own disintegration. The courage to trust a process that looks like failure. Every day that you spend in this state, not fighting it but observing it, is a day of your quiet, invisible victory. You are the hero of your own myth, passing through the darkest part of the forest, and no one but you knows what it costs you. So know and believe this with your whole being. You are not falling apart. You are reassembling yourself. Yes, the old structure is collapsing. Yes, the facade that you've built for so long is crumbling. But from these fragments, in this silence, you are building something completely different. You are building yourself from more authentic, more durable materials. From the truth about yourself that you are no longer afraid to admit. From the desires that you no longer consider shameful. From the strength that you find in your vulnerability. You are building a house in which you can finally live. Not the person you are trying to seem to be. And one last thing. Your mind, your inner critic, will constantly whisper the most terrible lie to you. You are wasting time. Please do not believe it. This pause is not lost time. It is the most important and most productive time of your life. The world measures productivity by external actions. Your soul now measures it by the depth of your silence. You are not producing anything for the external world because you are busy with the most important production. You are producing yourself. You are laying the foundation for the second half of your life. And the deeper and stronger this foundation is, the taller and more beautiful a building you will be able to erect on it when the energy returns. So let's bring our entire hour-long journey down to one main liberating truth. You are not broken. You are in the process of being reassembled. Your apathy is not an absence of energy, but it's ultimate concentration at the one point that matters right now, the point of your true essence. This is not an energy crisis, but a strategic mobilization of all your inner resources for the most important campaign of your life. And perhaps the best metaphor for this whole process is the compass of your soul. For the entire first half of your life, this compass was calibrated to the external world. It flawlessly pointed to the false north of external achievements, social approval and material success. And you were a good captain of your ship. You followed its directions, sailed to these goals, reached these shores. And one day, having exhausted all resources in pursuit of this mirage, the needle began to tremble. Then it spun in a mad dance, and then it just froze, lifelessly pointing nowhere. It seems to you that the compass is broken, but it is not broken. It has performed an act of supreme wisdom. It has refused to point to a lie. And now, in this silence and darkness of your Negredo, a great mystery is taking place. Far from the magnetic storms of others' opinions and expectations, this sensitive needle slowly, tentatively, begins to search for your authentic, inner north. Yourself. The one pole of meaning that is true for you personally. This is not a failure of the navigation system. It is its transition from external satellites to inner stars. Your soul has simply stopped following someone else's map and is now, in the dark, feeling its way home. And when the energy returns, and it will return, be sure of that, it will flow differently. It will not be the turbulent, anxious river of neurotic shoulds that rushes forward, sweeping away everything in its path and ultimately leaving only exhaustion behind. It will be a deep, calm, full-flowing stream that is fed from your inner source. It will not hurry because it has nothing to prove. You will find that you do less, but each of your actions will have more weight. The fuss will disappear. The need to fill every minute with productivity will disappear. Every choice you make, every word, every project will stem not from anxiety, but from wholeness. You will learn to distinguish movement from action, and you will choose only what has authentic resonance with your soul. You will find what can be called quiet joy. It is not the euphoria of an achieved goal which lasts for a moment and is replaced by a new race. It is not loud happiness that requires an audience and likes. It is a steady, warm glow inside. The satisfaction of living in harmony with yourself. You will stop chasing happiness because you will begin to quietly radiate it from your center. And then you will return to the world, but you will return different. Not as its slave, forever reacting to its demands and fashions, but as a co-creator of your reality. Your life will cease to be a reaction to external stimuli and will become an expression of your inner truth. Before we finish, I want to say thank you, not just for watching this video, but for walking this path with me. Thank you for your courage to look into your silence. Thank you for your trust, which allowed us to take this deep dive. Thank you for sharing an hour of your precious, healing emptiness with us. In moments of such inner transformation, it is easy to feel isolated, as if you are the only person on the planet whose world has stopped while everyone else continues to run. But know this, you are not alone in this cocoon. Everyone who has watched this video to the end, who was not afraid of the depth and did not run from the discomfort, is your invisible companion on this journey. Right now, along with you, thousands of people around the world are in their own silence, listening to their own inner call and searching for their own north. We are scattered across the world but united by one aspiration. We are a community of those who seek not success, but wholeness. Those who understand that the most important growth happens not on the outside, but on the inside. Those who are ready to go through the darkness to find their authentic light. You are part of this invisible brotherhood of seekers, and that is a great strength. Our dive today is coming to an end, but the work of the soul is not a one-time event, but a lifelong journey. It is the constant art of listening, tuning in, and following your inner compass. If this journey inward was valuable to you, if you felt a resonance and want to continue the exploration, then I invite you to become a permanent member of our expedition. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss our next dives into the most important and uncharted territories of the soul. Each video is a new map, a new tool for your great inner journey. In this vast digital ocean where so many people are wandering in the darkness of their own apathy, your like is not just a click, it is a lit beacon. It helps the algorithm show this light of hope to those who are searching for it most. To those who are asking themselves right now, am I broken? Help this message find them. And continue to share the images of your gardens in the comments. Read the stories of others. You will see that we are a huge community of soul gardeners, each cultivating their own unique, precious plot. This space is our common heritage, a place of power for all of us. And in closing, let me leave you with one thought, and remember, the most important dialogue in your life is the one that happens in silence. Listen carefully.